Welcome all to today's reading from the Basics of Bhagavad Gita, and we are nearly on the end of the last chapter. And today we'll be covering the Jnana Yogis. Happy Vamana Ekadashi or Pashwa Ekadashi to everybody. Today is also the day when Lord, who has been trying to he has closed his eyes since the beginning of Chaturmas, is sleeping, and today is when he turns his side. इसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं करवट बदलना, और वो अपनी आंखें खोलेंगे जब चातुर्मास का एंड होगा. So let's invoke the presence of the God. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Guru Dintarnam Paramananda Madham Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Manchakalpatarubhesha Kripasindhiveva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. So we read about the Karamkandis, the lawbreakers, the Nishkam Karam Yogi, and now it's the Jnana Yogi. So each time the yogi is getting better and better in their understanding of the Lord. So the Karamkandi is better than the lawbreaker, and the Nishkam Karam Yogi, he's better than the Karamkandi. Now it's Jnana Yogi who is even better than the Nishkam Yogi. So when one tries to find the absolute truth, which is beyond this material world by the process of negation, that is neti neti, not this, not this, he is called a Jnana Yogi. Jnana Yoga is the process of trying to understand the absolute truth through the cultivation of philosophical knowledge. The Jnana Yogi understands the absolute truth as the impersonal Brahman. So the Jnana Yogi only understands up to the light which is coming, the effulgence which is coming out of the Lord's body. So they are happy to have their journey up to the light only. So the Jnana Yogi understands the absolute truth as the impersonal Brahman, the formless and eternal spiritual reality beyond this temporary world. So they don't consider Bhagwan as a formed, somebody who has a form. They consider him to be impersonal or formless. They may wish to merge their spiritual identity into the impersonal Brahman. They perform severe austerities and also try to understand the truth by philosophical speculation and word jugglery. Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that this path is ridden with great trouble and difficulty. So they think they will merge, वो उस भगवान के जो ज्योति निकल रही है उनके फॉर्म में से, वो उसमें एक हो जाएंगे. This is what is their journey, like so as to say. Klesho dika taras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham deha vadbhir avapyate. This is from chapter 12 Bhagavad Gita, verse 5, translated as, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, that is a light, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Now the next are the Ashtanga Yogis. It is a meditative process to control the mind and the senses and to ultimately focus one's concentration on the Supreme. It is an eightfold process consisting of Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. So it's eightfold, so hence it's Ashtanga. By initially following the strict codes of conduct and then practicing some physical and breathing exercises, one tries to meditate on the Paramatma, the Lord in the heart. Whenever the unwanted, disturbing thoughts come, one drives them away. As one advances in the meditation process, then finally one is able to achieve full absorption in the God or the Lord. It is very rigorous, strict and difficult regime and discipline to follow. Ashtanga yogis lift the souls up, and eventually the soul may depart at the time of their choice through the Brahmarandhara, which is a tiny hole in the top of the skull. So this is how they go through the journey, the Ashtanga yogis. Then the perfected yogi may go to any destination in the universe. In certain variations of this yoga, sadhakas strive to activate the kundalini, certain subtle psychophysical energies stored in the body. So they try to awake their kundalini, however, very dangerous, and even for those who succeed, they lose sight of the ultimate goal of life. And when that energy is woken, sometimes these yogis, they even lose the goal which they had in their life, because it's not a very normal thing to awaken that Shakti in our body. Often strict practice of Ashtanga Yoga awards the yogis certain extraordinary powers which are simply material byproducts of the process. Some of these powers are called siddhis, and doing these rigorous regimes and in the Ashtanga Yoga, these sadhakas, they gain some byproducts or some powers which are the siddhis, and these siddhis are anima, laghima, prapti, ishitva and prakamya, vashitva and kama, vashaita, etc. That is becoming lighter than the lightest, heavier than the heaviest, obtaining anyone of one's choice, controlling others, and so on. So these are the siddhis, these they try to achieve. Even genuine Ashtanga yogis look at these siddhis with contempt, as they are simply distractions on the path. Devotees of the Lord in particular are not at all impressed by a display of such powers, because they understand these things to be material, insignificant and irrelevant. The substance of life is devotion to God and nothing else. But the devotees, their goal is something else, that is the devotion to God, and that's that. When Lord Krishna describes the process of Ashtanga Yoga to Arjuna in 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita with all its strict requirements, for example, celibacy, freedom from ego, fear and material desires, going to a secluded place, controlling the mind, etc., Arjuna said that it was very difficult for him to follow. How then can this process be applicable for us ordinary people of Kali Yuga? If Arjuna found these processes to be so difficult, then how come we the people of Kali Yuga, can think of these processes to be easy for us or practical for us for this age of Kali Yuga? Some Ashtanga yogis prefer to worship the impersonal Brahman, and others develop attachment for the Lord in the heart. So the Ashtanga yogis have got the worship of either the impersonal Brahman, the Jyoti, the Brahma Jyoti of Bhagwan, or they develop attachment to the Paramatma, which is the Lord in the heart. Gradually, the Ashtanga yogi may advance to the point of beginning to render devotional service to the Supreme Lord. He has now arrived to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. When that Ashtanga yogi, he starts offering the devotional service to the Lord, then only he arrives actually to the platform of the Bhakti Yoga. Now, we'll read about Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of selfless, ecstatic love of God by rendering devotional service. It involves engaging all one's senses in the service of the Supreme Lord, who is the master of the senses. It makes us transcend all material designations, purifies the heart and the senses, and arouses the love of God within. Prahlad has defined bhakti or devotional service to the Lord as a ninefold process. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 5th chapter, verses 23 to 24, Prahlad Maharaj, who was the son of Hiranyakashipu, the demon, he describes the ninefold processes of bhakti. One can attain perfection in bhakti yoga by adopting any of these processes. So the processes are ninefold of 9 types, but if one can perfect any one of these processes, one can attain the perfection in bhakti yoga. So that verse is Shri Prahlad Uvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam Iti Pumsar Pita Vishnu Bhaktis Chain Navalakshana Kriyata Bhagavati Adha Tanmanye Dhitam Uttamam. So the translation of these verses 23 and 24 from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5 is, Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities and paraphernalia and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord's one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with the body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Now, there's a little chart here which lists the 9 processes and the examples of great devotees who perfected their lives by adopting them. So the first process is Shravanam, and the meaning of Shravanam is hearing about the Lord. And Parikshit Maharaj, he attained the perfection in this process. So when he was given just 7 days and nights to live, he gave up everything. He gave up his kingdom and every relation, everything. He just sat and listened to the Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami for 7 days towards the end of his life. So he perfected the hearing, Shravanam, hearing about the Lord. The second process is Kirtanam. Kirtanam means speaking or singing about the Lord. And Shukadev Goswami, he perfected that. Smaranam is remembering the Lord, and Prahlad Maharaj perfected that. He was remembering the Lord constantly. Shukadev Goswami was singing about him constantly. He's the one who narrated the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. Fourth is Archanam, or worshipping the deity of the Lord. Bhagwan ki arch vigraha ki murti ki puja karna is Archana. Prithu Maharaj, he attained the perfection through this process. Then it is Vandanam, the 5th process, which is offering prayers to the Lord. Akrur Maharaj, he perfected that. Remember, we read in Krishna book, which was based on Canto 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Akrur Maharaj, how he went to Vrindavan, took the message to the gopis. 6th is Padasevanam. It is serving the Lord's lotus feet. And Lakshmi Devi, she is the devotee who has attained the perfection through this process. We can see in the various pictures of Narayan, Lord Narayan, whether it's Garbhodakshay Vishnu or Shirodakshay Vishnu, how she is doing the seva to the Lord by massaging his feet. 7th is Dasyam, acting as a Lord's servant, and Hanuman is the perfect example. He served Lord Rama when Krishna came as Lord Rama all the time, and even after Lord Rama left this universe, Hanumanji said that wherever there will be Ram Katha, he will be present. and he'll be looking after the devotees. Sakhyam is being friends with the Lord, and Hanumanji also served Krishna as well, when Krishna was the charioteer or the Sarthi of Arjun, by being on top of the chariot. उस रथ के ऊपर जो पताका थी, जो झंडा था, उसमें अपने हनुमान जी विद्यमान थे. 8th is Sakhyam. Sakhyam is being friends with the Lord, and Arjun is the prime example of such a devotee. He was not only related to Krishna, but he was a very dear friend of Krishna. Atmanivedanam is the 9th process, which is surrendering everything to Lord, and Bali Maharaj is the prime example for this. And today is the day, we call it a Vaman Ekadashi as well, and until 12 noon here we are fasting as well for Lord Vaman. Lord Vaman is the one, is the roop when Bhagwan came and asked Bali Maharaj everything in 3 steps. He measured everything in one step, the whole of the plains and the dharti, all the loks were measured. In the 2nd step, all the above the sky and the ether were measured, and for the 3rd step there was nothing left. So Bali Maharaj, he put his head in front of him and asked the Lord to put his head there. So Bali Maharaj is the prime example of such a devotee who surrendered everything to the Lord when Lord came as Vaman Dev, or the dwarf incarnation. The great devotee Ambarish Maharaj perfected his life by adopting all the 9 processes of devotional service. So Ambarish Maharaj, he's the one who perfected his life by adopting all the 9 processes of the devotional service. Let's have a recap on them. They are from Canto 7, Chapter 5, verse 23-24. These were said by Prahlad Maharaj, the little Prahlad Maharaj, who worshipped Lord, and Lord came to rescue him from his own father Hiranyakashipu, and who vanquished Hiranyakashipu. And those 9 processes are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Padasevanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, and Atma Nivedanam. The great devotee Ambarish we're talking about, that who perfected all the 9 processes of the devotional service and perfected his life. So Bhakti Yoga is the easiest, quickest and most effective yoga process to achieve the perfection of life. The yoga ladder. We'll talk about the yoga ladder now. The path leading up to the God is like a ladder, the yoga ladder. The different yogic processes are like the rungs on the ladder. So हम भगवान तक पहुंचने वाली जो सीढ़ी है उसको योगा की सीढ़ी कह सकते हैं, लैडर कह सकते हैं. और जो सीढ़ियों के डिफरेंट स्टेप्स हैं, जो पायदान हैं, दे आर लाइक द different yogic processes on the ladder. Bhakti yoga is like the topmost rung. So सभी जो सीढ़ियां हैं उन सब में से जो ऊंची सीढ़ी है वो है yogic processes की, उसका नाम है Bhakti yoga. In fact, Bhakti yoga is like an elevator or lift that takes us very easily and quickly to the top. Trying to reach the top through the other processes means that we have to climb the stairs all the way to the top. This is naturally very slow and cumbersome. So if we start from the lawbreaker stage to Karam Kandi, to Gyan, to Nishkam Karma Yogi, then to Gyan Yogi, then to Ashtang Yoga, and then to Bhakti Yogi, then it will take long time, God knows how many lives. But if we take to Bhakti Yoga, which is the topmost of all the yogas, which comes after the Ashtang Yoga, then our small route will be made shorter. In other words, the normal long route would be one to evolve gradually over many lifetimes to all the 6 stages, that is the kinds of human beings we have discussed earlier, namely the lawbreakers, the karamkandis, karam yogis, jnana yogis, ashtang yogis, and finally the bhakti yogis. So one should save time, energy, and inconvenience and adopt the risk-free process of bhakti yoga immediately. So if we want to use the direct method, which is the bhakti, that will take us from wherever we are straight to Lord, because bhakti is the love of the God. But if we want to go through the different yogic processes which we have described, it will be a long and indirect process or method. Bhakti yoga is independent, but all other yogas are dependent on it for achieving ultimate perfection. In other words, bhakti yoga is sufficient in itself to achieve perfection. But along with the other processes, bhakti yoga is required for perfection. But if we follow the other yogic processes, we will need bhakti also, because on their own, they won't help us. But bhakti yoga on its own is sufficient. It is independent. At any stage of the yoga ladder, one may take to bhakti yoga. The horizontal, there's a diagram where they show how it can be how if you are on any stage of yogic process, even if you're a lawbreaker, if you want to go to the bhakti yoga, you can go direct straight. But if you want to go indirect, then you have to go through all other stages and you will gradually reach there. So what is required for one to come to bhakti yoga from any other stage of yoga ladder? The answer is the association of the devotees or the sadhu sangha. So until we have the sadhu sangha, until we have the sangha of the devotees, of the bhaktas, we cannot come from any other stage to the bhakti stage. So there are some examples of how other yogis became bhaktas or the devotees simply by association with the Lord or his devotees. So we need the Hari Bhakt Sangha. The Sadhu Sangha will also be there when we will meet some elevated devotees like the sannyasis and the gurus. So coming to the Bhakti Yoga, lawbreakers, the sinful hunter Mrigaradi was converted into a kind, compassionate devotee by the association of the great Narad Muni. Narad Muni also transformed a sinful dacoit into a saint, who then became known as Valmiki. So when we see among the Karamkandis, King Prachina Barhist was completely immersed in Karamkanda, but by the mercy of Narad Muni, he became a devotee. Among the Jnana Yogis, the four Kumaras were impersonalists, the four sons of Lord Brahma who vowed that they never wanted to get married or anything. They just wanted to stay as small kids and always just remember the God and serve God. They were the four Kumaras. They were impersonalists first, but by the smelling the fragrance of the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus of Lord, they became devotees. They were also impersonalists. They didn't believe in the form of the God. But after smelling the tulsi leaves, the fragrance of the tulsi leaves which are offered to the Bhagwan, they became the devotees of the Lord. And among the Ashtang yogis, there's an example of some of them, by coming in contact with Ambarish Maharaj, the powerful mystic yogi Durvasa Muni developed the understanding of the greatness of devotees. So Durvasa Muni nearly cursed Ambarish Maharaj when he was trying to have a bath and in the river Ganga and to have open his Ekadashi Vrat. Durvasa Muni just came heavy on him and asked for some food and asked for being served, but it was big dilemma for Ambarish Maharaj, because he wanted to open his fast before the Dwadashi began. So even he tried to pacify Durvasa, but Durvasa Muni tried to curse him. But then Lord he helped Amrish Maharaj because he left the Sudarshan Chakra after Durvasa Muni. Now Durvasa Muni was running and the Sudarshan Chakra was following him everywhere. So eventually Durvasa Muni touched the feet of Amrish Maharaj and asked for the forgiveness, and in this way Durvasa Muni came to understand the greatness of the devotees. Durvasa Muni is famous for his very, very short fuse, short temper. Bhakti Yoga. Now the Bhakti Yoga is the topmost yoga system. Thus the Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. Bhakti Yogi is the topmost yogi and is clearly declared by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginam api sarvesham mad gatinantar atmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam sa me yukta tamo mata. This is from chapter 6, verse 47, translated as, and all the yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. There is misconception that Bhakti Yoga is for the sentimentalists and Jnana Yoga is those for the who are intelligent and seeking knowledge. Now this is a misconception. Actually, one can come to Bhakti only after cultivating many lifetimes of knowledge as confirmed by Lord Krishna in verse 7.19. So anyone who has come to Bhakti Yoga, actually they have dedicated many lifetimes before in understanding, in acquiring the knowledge as is confirmed by Lord Krishna in this shloka, which is, in other words, Bhakti is the culmination and the very purpose of acquiring Gyan. So after you have acquired so much Gyan, where is that Gyan going to end? The Gyan is going to take you to eventually to the Bhakti itself. This is chapter 7, verse 19. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadete Vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatmasu durlabha. Translated as, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, and all that is such a great soul is very rare. Furthermore, one who has taken to devotional service must be understood to have already performed all other processes of yoga in previous lives. So one should understand that anybody who has taken a bhakti has performed all the other yogic processes, all the processes of the yoga in the previous lives. Therefore, only the most intelligent persons they take to the devotional service of the Lord. The devotees are destined for the spiritual world. Those who become bhakti yogi have a very bright and happy future. They are meant to go to the kingdom of God to engage in eternal, blissful and loving pastimes with the Supreme Lord. This is the ultimate destination and perfection of life. There is nothing higher to be achieved. This is the goal of yoga. Now the different rasas. In the spiritual world, one may love and serve the Lord in various rasas or mellows. In neutrality, which is called the Shantaras, as servant, which is the Dasyam, as a friend, which is Sakhyam, as parent, which is Vatsalyam, and as his lover, which is Madhurya. These relationships and dealings are purely spiritual. Please do not mistake them on the level of the material level. And they have nothing to do with similar relationships of the material world. As far as we are concerned, we may simply serve the Lord in the mood of a servant. He is our Lord and Master, and we are His eternal servants. So the last chapter, practical applications of Bhagavad Gita. We will read this tomorrow, and with this we will finish this basics of Bhagavad Gita and hopefully start the Bhagavad Gita from next week and go through all the 18 chapters one by one. I wish you all a very happy Ekadashi ahead and the remaining weekend. Keep chanting and stay happy. Hare Krishna and Hari Bol.